Chasing him. Nearly got him. Nearly got him. Nearly got him. Yeah, really tactical, Dad. Hi, and welcome to the inside of my head, where I've been going Pacific Rim crazy. This is my 5th video on the franchise, covering the original movie, the sequel Uprising, a preview of The Black, and the series itself. Are you paying attention? Good, just checking. I'll also be looking at the graphic novel series pretty soon, and that's going to be full of gold nuggets. There be gold in them there pages. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Anyway, you can find all that other stuff elsewhere on my channel, and if you've already been watching, you'll know that I really enjoyed The Black. But that's not to say that there weren't a few things in there that really bugged me. Mr. Normal Person is completely normal. So my original question asked whether The Black was more like Pacific Rim or more of an Uprising. But I quite quickly realized that that's a really stupid comparison. I mean, different settings, different Jaegers, different Kaiju, different characters. Heck, it's a fucking cartoon now! Of course, them being part of the same universe will invite direct comparisons, but you might as well compare apples to alpacas, and I am just not going to do that. But the original question is still relevant in that I am quite curious to see if they managed to retain what we all loved about the original movie, or whether this series fell into the same pitfalls that the sequel did. And that's what we're going to be looking at here. But let's start with the things that I liked about it. And the first thing that pops into my head, the first thing that really struck me about it, and especially about the early apps, was this sense of dread and despair, a feeling that I never got from the original Pacific Rim movies themselves, but I got from movies like The Road or The Walking Dead, but of course, to a much greater extent in those. It gave me a real feeling that the war is lost.
Looks like the end of the world.
And everyone is scattered and isolated, and we are not the dominant species on the planet anymore. Obviously, The Road is for a much older audience, and I really shouldn't be comparing that either. But what I'm trying to say is that in The Road, you get a real sense that it would almost be easier to be dead. What? Rather than struggle and suffer in the world the way it is now.
Hi, you've reached Depression Helpline. Press 1 if you're having dark thoughts. Press 2 if you've just watched The Road.
I mean, it really is bleak as fuck, and I'm not saying that there's anything near that level of bleakness in The Black, but I'm just saying there was a twinge of that, there was a little hint of that, and it got me. And especially here with Zeus's death. Hello, darkness, my old friend. So it seems like the precursors, who are barely mentioned in this series, have changed their tactics somewhat.
Tactics, not tic-tacs!
Have changed their tactics somewhat. Instead of sending a couple of gargantuan kaijus, they've now started sending a dozen or more at once. And you know what? I even counted the little triangles on this here graphic. And don't say I never do anything for you guys, because this is the levels that I am willing to stoop to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Fuck. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fuck. 20, 21, 22, 23. Did I just count that one twice? Fuck! 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Fucking 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. What? What the fuck? Are they moving around? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 31, 32, 33, 34, motherfucker! So there are 34 incursions. So that's 34 kaijus stomping around on one continent all at the same time. These precursors ain't messing around. The PPDC, has been overwhelmed by this new invasion force of so-called smarter, so-called more tactical, kaiju. What? And I don't know if this is just me, but they don't feel as big this time around, and they're definitely not as unique. Like, how many acid quills do we see in this season? 2? 3? But anyway, using this tactic has worked wonders for the precursors because it's pushed humanity onto the back foot, at least as far as Australia is concerned. I mean, the rest of the world isn't even mentioned, but it's safe to assume that they're in the shit as well. Otherwise, I mean, they would have helped out the Aussies, wouldn't they? Oh my god, I thought there was a spider in my headphone and it just crawled in my ear, but it wasn't. So anyway, the early visuals, coupled with the music, and this is another thing I love, create a real sense of doom. feeling like normal life is a thing of the past. Back to the music, I mentioned Voltron in one of the reviews for having a really epic soundtrack that was really stirring. As well as Kipo. And the Black 2 has this brilliant sound that just takes the whole thing to another level, and I loved it. And that, in turn, helps you feel what the characters are feeling. And whilst the kids aren't the most interesting characters ever written, for example, Haley did some really stupid, annoying mistakes, like setting off the alarms that got all the kids in the settlement killed, dead handsome guy with the floppy hair, dead cute girl with the hefty bosom, dead background performer with the surprised expression, what? Dead this guy with one line of dialogue, dead these guys, dead kids, dead dad. Let's all slow clap for Haley, shall we? And Taylor just wasn't particularly interesting, but I felt more of a connect with them than any of the characters from the movies, and that connection makes the seriousness of this situation really ring true. Now that I think about it, can you tell me one thing about Rayleigh's backstory? I mean, other than him losing a brother, do we know a single thing about Amara? I mean, just an edit on this, she does have her own graphic novel, which I'll do another video on as soon as I've read it. Oh, and you do see her family die, don't you? Oh, I forgot about that. Okay, forget everything I just said. But you get my point. Another big thing that Pacific Rim got so right was the feeling of scale. And you guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but honestly, I didn't get that a whole bunch from the Black, apart from maybe this shot right here and a couple of others. On the whole, the Kaiju felt less imposing too, but at the time, I thought that was down to the Precursors' change in tactics, that they're deliberately using a greater number of smaller Kaijus instead of fewer, larger ones. I'm so alone. But now, I think it's just something that's gotten lost in the translation to cartoon form. Another possible explanation could be that you only get a sense of scale when there's something to compare these things to. Go compare! For example, here it's right next to a building, so it must be massive. But here, these things are in a featureless ice field, so fuck knows how big they're meant to be. And I still can't believe these things are supposed to be walking on ice. That's unbelievable. And what the fuck is this thing? Isn't that the thing that's meant to be keeping the ice zombies out? I took it and threw it on the ground! And for the most part, the Kaiju, and I'm referring mainly to Copperhead here, are out in the middle of the desert, so we never get the same feeling of how big it's supposed to be. But on the Kaiju, the dad says that these Kaijus are different, that they're more tactical somehow.
Something different about these Kaiju. They're more, I don't know, intelligent, calculating.
But we literally see zero examples of that. In fact, chasing him, nearly got him, nearly got him, nearly got him. Yeah, really fucking tactical, Dad. Behaving like Beethoven the fucking St. Bernard. The dog Kaiju do look cool, but they're pretty generic, really. You could swap them for the raptors from Jurassic Park and it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference. I love the design of the acid quill and its tentacle attacks, and I would have loved to have seen more of this guy. The salamander, Chinese dragon style Kaiju, I could take or leave, really. But the Copperhead looked too much like a dinosaur. And it just wasn't good enough to be the main bad guy, really. I mean, if we go back, look, this one's got an EMP pulse. This one sprouts fucking wings out of nowhere. This one looked like a crab thing. What is it even? Where the fuck did the Precursors get the blueprints for this thing? And now we have this sort of triceratopsy thing without the horns. I mean, it has a spiked tail, but nothing else, really. I mean, what else does it do? Disappointed! And I refer to Copperhead as the main bad guy very loosely because I feel like the Kaiju have been demoted in terms of level of threat, and they've been usurped by this guy.
People, what a bunch of bastards.
And now he's the main threat in the series, and overall, he's a pretty good bad guy. Completely merciless, totally cold-blooded, and...
I should have left you on the streets where I found you. And you know what you'd be right now? The things they'd have you doing?
Dude, what does that mean?
The things they'd have you doing?
What is in this guy's head? The one thing that I find hard to get past, and I know this is kind of superficial, is the way they've made this character look. Like, with a personality like he's got, like, he should look more like this guy. Remember this guy from District 9? He was mean! He seems like the kind of guy who's been living off cans of dog food for the past 5 years. He's the kind of guy who kicks dogs because his ex-wife made a joke about puppies on their first date. He should have his own techno remix like Leonidas does. This guy seems like the kind of guy who hasn't got time to brush the dried blood out of his beard, let alone put on a full suit. I mean, it's nice that Sean, even though the world has quite clearly gone to shit, still upholds some sense of personal pride and standards, you know what I mean? But what is he, the fucking Old Spice guy?
Well, once you've made love the Bruce Campbell way, you never go back.
It just, I don't know. I guess that's anime for you, I guess. Did I just go off on one again? Like, I get sidetracked sometimes. The Jaeger designs are still in the realm of Uprising, unfortunately. And the 4 that we see, Atlas Destroyer, Hunter Vertigo, Marauder, something something, and Striker Berserker, none of them particularly stood out. Atlas maybe of kind of, of course it did, but that's because it's really bright yellow. And the others, meh. I mean, for example, it wasn't until the flashbacks that I realized that the Jaeger in the opening scene wasn't Hunter Vertigo at all, that it was actually Striker Berserker. And I know I'm repeating myself, but this would not have happened with the original lineup. One thing that is very distinctive though is the Mechakaiju. It's one of the eye Jaegers that managed to evolve by itself somehow. My guess is that the fairy from fucking Pinocchio came down and booped his nose with her wand and made him a real boy, biomech boy. And she was obviously a fan of the Star Wars prequels because she made him look like Darth Maul. But seriously, in there we see these kind of like blue tendrils like going into its mask and bringing him to life. What those blue tendrils are, we don't know. And it's my guess that we're never going to find out. Mummy, how are babies made? Good question, Chloe. These blue glowing tendril worm things burrow into a dead body's eyes and reanimate it back to life. Now I've got mixed feelings about Mechakaiju. I quite like that he's impartial and that he's kind of just a rogue agent and that he's hunting the kaiju and people and Jaegers as well. Woo! But right now he's kind of just used as a character who shows up in the nick of time to save the day, and it's a little bit of an easy way to get the characters out of trouble. But I think if they integrate him better into the plot in season 2, I think he could be quite a good character. And what about this weird connection that he has with Boy? And how many innocent animals do you think he'll murder in season 2? But needless to say, I'm glad he has these murderous instincts because he has kaiju in his DNA and not because he's a perverted serial killer in the making. It all started when I ate a butterfly. But regardless, it's an interesting thought that he might have been made by the precursors and not by humans. If he was made by humans, then it explains how he got in this here vat. But if he was made by precursors, how did he get here underneath the PPDC facility? The PPDC he must have captured him at some point, and I want to know how that happened. What about the sisters? The sisters, I just noticed, are all really, really small. I mean, if you see them up against these kaiju dogs, could they be children? Could it be that in return for their souls, the kaiju god has given them eternal youth? Or are these dogs just really big? I mean, fuck knows, but it's a safe bet that these guys will feature heavily in season 2. Could it be that they teach Boy how to harness his kaiju powers to finally beat Darth Bully Maguire? So overall, other than a few other little things that bug me, like, how Haley managed to dislodge the nuke in Hunter Vertigo's arm launcher just by tapping her foot on it a few times. I mean, surely if this is just the amount of force required to dislodge it, her parents could have tried firing the thing again and it would have dislodged itself. Or poke it with a stick or something, I don't know. I was also a little annoyed with that section at the beginning where Herc Hansen is fighting the Acid Quill in Striker Berserker, when he manages to trigger the black and then it just cuts off and we don't find out what happened to him. But maybe that'll come back in season 2 and become relevant again. Another thing that bugged me was that ghost piloting is made out to be a lot easier in this one, and that actually anyone could do it with just a recording of another pilot's memories. But then, why couldn't they have been doing that the whole time? And if that's the road you want to go down, why can't they remote pilot these things anyway? I mean, if drone pilots can do that now with just an Xbox controller, in the future they'll probably be able to Bluetooth Jaegers to their smartphones. Just make sure to keep Siri and Loa separated, okay? Hey Siri, where did you get that paint job? The 90s? I got it from exactly the same place that you couldn't keep hold of your husband. Then, of course, we have to discuss the massive gear shift in terms of style. At first, it was a little jarring, like it's such a big change from what's come before, that, as with Uprising, it almost felt like it could be another franchise entirely. Let's look at the Animatrix for a second, for example. Every episode had different characters, narratives, visual styles, but somehow they all feel like the same universe. Uprising failed at this somehow. And this This was very close to missing the mark as well, but I think it just had enough connections to bring it back into line. So you dodged the bullet there. And I guess secretly I was hoping for more of the dark, rainy, neon-lit scenes, and for that to be replaced by the hot, sweaty desert of the Australian outback was a little disappointing. At one point I was wondering if they would go full Mad Max with it and we would have gangs of inbred lunatics screaming around on modified flame-spewing monster trucks. Oh wait, no! Maybe that is where it's gonna go. Maybe Sean is gonna show up in season 2 in his homemade Jaeger and it's gonna have like 25 exhaust pipes, all spewing flames, and it's gonna have 2 platforms for metal guitarists, and of course it's gonna have a cage on its back for all the kids he's stolen from school playgrounds. Seriously, guy, seek help. So overall, The Black is a really good expansion of the Pacific Rim universe, and I cannot wait for Season 2. It has many elements that I enjoyed, and I give it a pass on many of its issues because it's a cartoon now. But it still kind of falls short in many ways, and ultimately just makes me want to go back and watch the original movie again. Maybe the ultimate solution to many of these points that I've made is to make a prequel. The bots would be the older style before they became streamlined and quote-unquote cool looking. We could possibly get to revisit the coolest character of the franchise and possibly explain how he forgot that he had a son. Anyway, it's funny I should say that because actually today I received some of the graphic novels and I realized that that's what some of those are doing. Those are prequels and they're going to be, I assume, looking at some of the earlier iterations of the robots. So I can't wait to get stuck into those and reviewing those for you. And check out the cover of this one. Who do these remind you of? But what did you guys think? Put a like on the video if you liked Pacific Rim The Black, and if you didn't like it, get in the comments and tell me why not. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching my Pacific Rim mini-series. I'm going to do a review of Season 2 of Snowpiercer next, which is a series also based on a graphic novel. I'm reviewing Season 2 of Beast Wars and then Season 1 of Beast Machines to help me understand what the is going on in War for Cybertron. I might even check out the X-Men anime that I found in the depths of Netflix the other day. So if you liked Pacific Rim stuff, you're going to love all that. I had a real blast making these videos, so I hope you enjoyed watching them. So it's time for me to take my meds and invite you kindly to get out of my head. And I see you in the next one. Cheerio, bye!